Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Mama. This film tells the story of two young girls who are forced to reside in a house that has a dark and ominous presence. Even after getting rescued, the evil forces follow them to their new home. Will they escape from it? Let's find out in Mama. Mama begins with the story of a stockbroker named Jeffrey Desange, who was frustrated after losing his fortune in the financial crisis in 2008. Jeffrey was mad, then killed his co-workers. Not only that, he also killed his wife who had been separated from him for a long time. After that, he took his two daughters, Victoria, 3 years old, and Lily, 1 year old. Jeffrey drove his car on the slippery, snowy road at high speed. Unable to drive the car in a steady state, he lost control until the car skidded and slid down the mountain. Luckily, his car was still stuck in the trees, so Jeffrey still had time to save himself with his children. On the other hand, Lucas, Jeffrey's identical twin brother, came to Jeffrey's house to find out what was going on. But he was not allowed to enter the house because the police were still investigating the murder case. Meanwhile, as Jeffrey and his two daughters were walking through the woods, he found an old abandoned cabin in the middle of the forest and decided to go in there. Victoria then complained to her father that her glasses were cracked and could no longer be used. Jeffrey then took the glasses off so she couldn't see clearly. Jeffrey, who is desperate and does not want to make his children suffer, intends to end his life and his two daughters together. But when he was about to shoot Victoria, suddenly he was attacked and killed by a creature that looked like a black shadow. Unable to see clearly without her glasses, Victoria did not know that her father had died. Victoria and Lily remained in the abandoned old cabin, but not alone. A supernatural being looks after and cares for them as if they were their own children. 5 years later, Lucas and his girlfriend, Annabelle, still look for Jeffrey and his two daughters. Lucas is also assisted by his friends who are skilled hunters to trace the roads that Jeffrey traveled the last time he drove his car. After searching for some time, the two hunters managed to find Jeffrey's car, which was still stuck in the trees. They then ordered hunting dogs to track down Jeffrey and his two daughters. Finally, their hunting dog directed the two hunters to an old cabin in the middle of the forest. When they entered the cabin, they saw many drawings of children's scribbles on the cabin walls and piles of cherry seeds in the kitchen. One of the hunters was surprised by the appearance of a creature crawling on the floor. It turns out it was one of Luca's nieces. The hunters found Victoria and Lily in the old cabin alive, but behaving strangely. Due to their strange and wild behavior due to years of isolation, Victoria and Lily were placed in Dr. Gerald Dreyfus' Children Welfare Clinic for intensive examination and treatment. Dreyfus tells Lucas that his two nieces behave like wild animals because they live alone in the woods. Lucas tried to approach Victoria, but she got scared and attacked him. Lucas then gave a pair of glasses to Victoria. Although at first she had doubts, Victoria then wore the glasses Lucas gave her. After seeing clearly, Victoria looked at Lucas and called him father because Lucas's appearance was very similar to his twin brother. Victoria then hugged Lucas very tightly because she missed her father so much. 3 months later, in a court hearing, Dreyfus explained to the judge and all the trial participants about the conditions experienced by Victoria and Lily. Dreyfus said that the two children had been isolated from the outside world for 5 years, making it difficult for him to make physical contact with them. Not only that, he also mentioned that Victoria and Lily unconsciously created a person's figure in their imagination, and it was as if that imaginary figure was the one who cared for and raised them while living in the forest. Victoria and Lily often call the imaginary figure Mama. Dreyfus said that now the physical and mental development of the two children has shown a better condition. However, Victoria and Lily have to get an outpouring of love and affection because so far both of them have lived without the caress of their parents. In addition, they still have to undergo intensive care both physically and emotionally to live normal lives like other children. In the trial, Lucas had to fight for custody of his two nieces because he wasn't the only one who wanted to take care of Victoria and Lily. One of the family of Jeffrey's late wife, Jean, also intends to claim custody of Victoria and Lily. Lucas is in danger of losing custody of his nieces because his residence and income are deemed insufficient to raise two children who also require intensive care for the special conditions they are experiencing. Jean stated that she was more worthy in every way to care for and raise the children than Lucas. Dreyfus said that he would help Lucas get custody of Victoria and Lily. Victoria and Lily were willing to move into the house belonging to his agency, which was certainly much bigger and worthy than Lucas's cramped apartment. As a bonus, Lucas also doesn't have to pay rent. Lucas and Annabelle immediately agreed and finally got full custody of his two nieces. One day, Dreyfus came to Victoria and asked her about what had happened to her and Lily in an old abandoned cabin in the woods during their 5 years. Dreyfus is still curious about the figure of Mama that the girls often mention. For some reason, Dreyfus felt there was a secret about Mama that Victoria and her sister had not revealed, and he had to find out about it. That was the reason why Dreyfus wanted to help Lucas win custody of them. Victoria had shown significant progress, but Lily still had difficulty speaking and maintained her wild behavior. Even so, Lucas and Annabelle still love them. Lucas, Annabelle, Victoria and Lily finally live together in the house like a real family. However, unbeknownst to Lucas and Annabelle, the figure of Mama who had been taking care of Victoria and Lily was also there, marked by the appearance of moths in the house. One day, Lily was playing with Mama in her room. When Annabelle was about to enter the room to get dirty clothes, Victoria stopped her right away. Annabelle finally did not come in and Victoria immediately closed the door. That night, Annabelle, who is a member of a rock band, was playing an electric guitar in her room, but suddenly there was a power outage in her house, and when she checked the situation in the kitchen, she was startled by Lily jumping off the table. After living with Victoria and Lily for a long time in their new home, Annabelle often experiences strange events in the house. In fact, she often has strange dreams where she dreams of a woman who is always trying to hurt her. The woman was none other than Mama, who felt disapproved of having anyone other than her in Victoria and Lily's life. On another day, when Annabelle and Lucas were making out in the room, Annabelle saw a scary figure pass by the door and into the nursery. Annabelle was frightened, then asked Lucas to check on Victoria and Lily. The door to the nursery, which had been slightly ajar, suddenly closed just as Lucas was about to enter. After entering there, Lucas found Victoria and Lily sleeping and no one was in their room. As Lucas was about to check the floor below, he noticed a strange crack in the wall. The crack was black and quite large, and oddly enough, there were a few moths there. Out of curiosity, he tried to observe it more closely, but suddenly, from the crack came a black shadow that attacked him until he bounced very hard and fell down the stairs. After being rushed to the hospital to get help as quickly as possible, Lucas has finally declared a coma and Annabelle has to take care of Victoria and Lily alone for a while. After some time living with Victoria and Lily without Lucas by her side, Annabelle, who used not even want to have children, has now transformed into a gentle and very motherly woman. Victoria begins to feel comfortable with normal human life and begins to open herself to love Annabelle, but not so with Lily, who still maintains her wild behavior and still finds it difficult to speak. When Dreyfus visits the house to check on Victoria and Lily, Annabelle tells about some of the oddities she's experienced, including when she heard adult women's voices from the nursery when they were playing or going to sleep. Annabelle thought that maybe it was the voice of Mama, but Dreyfus assumes that Mama is an imaginary figure deliberately created by Victoria. However, Dreyfus does not rule out that Mama is a mysterious figure that is quite real because Victoria and Lily often describe her with a strange appearance. Not only that, Dreyfus also got a little enlightenment when doing hypnotherapy on Victoria, where she told a story about a woman who escaped from a mental hospital with her baby. After conducting an investigation, Dreyfus finally found a suicide case of Edith Brennan, whose life story and background have very accurate similarities with Victoria's narrative. Elsewhere, Lucas is in a coma, dreaming of his twin brother in the tunnel. In his dream, Jeffrey begs Lucas to go to a cabin and save his children. After that, Lucas had a pretty severe seizure. The doctor immediately took quick action to save Lucas's life, until his condition became more stable and he was fully conscious. One day, Annabelle came to Victoria, who was crying in the bathroom. Victoria replied that she didn't want Annabelle to get hurt when she asked what had happened. Annabelle did not understand what Victoria meant and was very worried about the girl because she looked frightened. When Annabelle was about to stroke her head, Victoria immediately slapped her hand away and said she'll be jealous, then immediately left, leaving Annabelle still confused. As Victoria has opened up to Annabelle and is getting closer to her, Victoria is playing with Mama less and less. That's what makes Mama jealous and tries to hurt Annabelle because Victoria now loves Annabelle. But because Mama keeps trying to hurt Annabelle, Victoria finally starts to stay away from Annabelle because Mama promises that she will not hurt Annabelle as long as she stays away from that woman. Victoria starts to get scared by the scary Mama figure. That's why she always takes off her glasses when she's playing with Mama. Victoria then feels that the mystery of her father's disappearance must also be related to Mama. On the other hand, even though Victoria often ignored her and Lily didn't show a good change in behavior, Annabelle still treated them with love, until finally, Victoria melted and Lily began to feel comfortable when Annabelle was by her side. As a result, Mama feels even more jealous. One day, Annabelle, who was sleeping, suddenly dreamed about a mental hospital patient in the 18th century who was running away into the middle of the forest holding her baby. The female patient was named Edith Brennan. However, after running for quite a while, the woman finally arrived at the edge of a very precipitous gorge. Pressured by a crowd of residents who tried to catch her and take her baby, she then decided to end her life by plunging herself into a ravine with her baby. Edith and her baby hit a large tree trunk, but Edith fell into the river and died instantly, while the baby got caught in a tree branch and died. After getting some old files about the case of Edith Brennan's death and Edith's legacy stored in a box, Dreyfus decides to continue his investigation of Mama, who he now believes is a supernatural figure and not Victoria's alter ego. Because the cracks in the walls and the old cabin in the middle of the woods are suspected to be where Mama lives, Dreyfus then intends to visit the cabin in search of clearer clues. On the other hand, because she did not find the figure of Mama anywhere, Lily then invited Victoria to get out of Lucas's house and return to the old cabin in the middle of the forest. But Victoria did not get out of bed and instead cried while hugging the blanket. Victoria has realized that Mama is not a human and is getting more and more afraid of Mama, unlike Lily, who since childhood has been accustomed to seeing the figure of Mama and assumes that Mama is indeed her mother. It turns out that Mama disappeared from Lucas' house to meet Dreyfus, who came to her cabin in the middle of the forest. Dreyfus arrived there just as it was getting dark. There was no lighting in the cabin and the man relied solely on flashlights. Dreyfus found a crack in the wall, just as he saw it in his file. Not long after, suddenly someone attacked Dreyfus from the darkness, until finally Mama appeared to Dreyfus and killed him. The next morning, Annabelle, who did not find Lily in the house, found her curled up in the cold in the backyard. Annabelle immediately took her to the house and tried to warm her by holding Lily tightly. At first, Lily struggled to get Annabelle to let her go, but Annabelle still hugged Lily, ignoring her rebellion. Over time, Lily began to calm down and feel comfortable in Annabelle's arms. Lily began to communicate with Annabelle even though she stammered. After that, Annabelle saw a black shadow in the nursery and thought it was Lily, but it turned out that Lily was downstairs with Victoria. After realizing this, Annabelle became curious about the black shadow figure she had seen entering the closet. Annabelle then opened the closet, but found nothing but their clothes. Victoria arrives just in time and saves Annabelle from Mama attack. Annabelle then asked Victoria about Mama, but she didn't want to talk about it. Annabelle accidentally finds a file belonging to Dreyfus that was left behind when he came to visit. Annabelle then checked the file and found hypnotherapy notes and a photo of a woman. She tried to contact Dreyfus to ask about the file, but he didn't answer the phone. Finally, Annabelle went to Dreyfus's office and secretly took some files and items related to Dreyfus' investigation of the figure of Mama. Elsewhere, Lucas, whose condition is getting better, finally finds the tunnel's location under the bridge. Without thinking, Lucas rushed to the location to look for more clues about Jeffrey's disappearance. That evening, Annabelle checks Dreyfus's laptop and plays Victoria's hypnotherapy videotape. In the video, Victoria tells that after Mama fell off a cliff and fell into the river, Mama did not find her baby anywhere. Mama has been looking for the whereabouts of her baby in the forest for years. And when Victoria and Lily arrive in the forest with their father, Mama decides to make Victoria and Lily a replacement for her lost baby. Annabelle cried after listening to the recording and Victoria hugged her and said goodnight. Victoria and Lily finally realized that Mama was getting more and more jealous because they both grew closer to Annabelle as time went on. Because of blind jealousy, Mama tried to attack Victoria and Lily. Hearing the screams of frightened children, Annabelle immediately came to them and Mama finally appeared in front of Annabelle. The trio tried to run away from Mama, but Annabelle fell and Mama managed to catch her. When Mama was about to kill Annabelle, Victoria tried to remind her of their promise that Mama would not kill Annabelle. Finally, Mama only paralyzed Annabelle and she fainted. At the same time, Jane visits Lucas' house, and because Mama is still upset that she can't kill Annabelle, Mama kills Jane and takes over her body. After that, Mama took Victoria and Lily away. Not long after, Annabelle, who had come to her senses, did not find the children's whereabouts anywhere. Annabelle thinks that Victoria and Lily were kidnapped by Mama. Therefore, Annabelle took Edith's relic that was in the box when he searched for Victoria and Lily in the forest. On the way, Annabelle meets Lucas, who is looking for clues about Jeffrey. Finally, they arrived at a house and found Jane, who had died. It turned out that the house was close to the cliff that Annabelle had seen in her dream. After they headed to the edge of the cliff, they found Victoria and Lily. Mama invites the children to come with her, and because Lucas tries to block her evil intentions, Mama attacks Lucas and tries to kill him. Annabelle immediately acted by calling Mama's real name. After that, she unwrapped the cloth she had taken from the box in Dr. Dreyfus's office. When Mama approached something wrapped in the cloth, she realized that it was the body of her biological child, which had now become bones, and her appearance briefly changed. However, when Annabelle and Lucas try to get Victoria and Lily to safety, Lily screams for her and Mama returns to her hideous form and tries to snatch the children again. Mama then attacked Lucas and knocked him down. When Mama was about to kill Annabelle, Victoria tried to distract her, so Mama released Annabelle. But Annabelle, who can still move, continues to save the children even though she has to struggle. Annabelle could only reach for Victoria's clothes and she suddenly stopped and looked at Mama. Victoria begs that she can stay with Annabelle, instead of going with Mama. Mama looked uncertain, then caressed Victoria's cheek gently to signify that her wish was granted. Victoria then said goodbye to Mama. After a tearful farewell, Mama and Lily finally jump off the cliff and embrace each other before crashing into a tree branch and turning into a moth swarm. Annabelle and Lucas hug Victoria tightly while crying over Lily's departure. The film ends.